Currently, we have 3 CRPGs, all of which are in early access, well, one of them is technically in beta, to choose from in 2021. So I think it's a great time to make a video explaining what these games are, what they offer, and what to expect. By the end of this video, you should have a decent idea as to which of these games you might want to play yourself, but keep in mind that all of these games are still in development, so many things are subject to change, and now's not the time for any official reviews or anything like that. But before we get into it, I'd like to introduce you to today's video sponsor. I want to show you guys the world's first browser designed specifically for us gamers, Opera GX, and it's completely free. The download link will be below. The first thing I'll mention, besides how cool it looks, is that this browser will especially benefit PC gamers because of a neat feature called GX Control. If you want to enhance performance on your PC while gaming and having browser tabs open simultaneously, GX Control can help you do just that. Simply click on the GX Control icon on the side panel and you'll see that there's a network limiter, which limits the amount of bandwidth Opera GX will use. There's a RAM limiter that I currently have set at 5 gigs, and even a CPU limiter. Don't let a browser bog your games down. Speaking of games, that brings us to the nicely organized GX Corner, where you can stay up to date with free games, find great deals, see the newest releases, catch up with gaming news, and much more. You can also easily switch between platforms and see upcoming games in the release calendar. All this is great, but my favorite feature of Opera GX is the design and customization options you get access to. Change your theme, wallpaper, animations. You can force dark pages, which is a godsend for myself. Change fonts, colors, the list goes on. Also, if you notice, I have Twitch, Discord, and Messenger integration. If I click on the Twitch icon, out slides a mini Twitch where you can easily see which of your favorite streamers are online. And with a simple click, you're watching them. The Discord integration is also great and makes life much easier. There really is a lot to this browser. The download link will be below in the video description as well as in the top comment. Download it, try it out, you got nothing to lose, and you will be seeing me use Opera GX during my live streams. Join the club. I'm going to start off this video with Solasta, Crown of the Magister. This is the lowest budget game out of the 3, not a bad thing though, with the smallest and newest company. Considering that most people don't make it all the way through videos, I want to make sure that this game gets the attention that it deserves. Solasta is an upcoming turn-based tactical RPG being developed by a studio by the name of Tactical Adventures. This is the company's first game and they are self-publishing it. To play early access as well as the full game when it comes out, it currently costs $34.99 on Steam. I think that's a very fair price for this game. Solasta is a turn-based game where you will control a party of 4, and it's based on 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, but in a more limited fashion. When it comes to game rules and mechanics, Solasta is actually the closest adaptation to the tabletop that you're going to get in a video game to date, but the lore and things of that nature are going to be a completely new experience. In early access, players currently can choose from 6 classes, which are 5e classes: Cleric, Fighter, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, and Wizard, and Sorcerer might be coming in the future. Early access level cap is currently 6, and they say it's around 10 hours of content, but I personally spent way more time than that on my playthrough. The first thing that I actually noticed while playing is the humor in the dialogue. Believe it or not, this game actually does have voiced cinematics. It's certainly not a AAA 2021 IMAX movie theater experience, but it definitely has personality. Depending on your alignment and personality choices in character creation, your characters will voice different types of dialogue, and some of it's quite entertaining to say the least. Your dialogue in this game is not really going to affect how the story actually turns out though. There's only going to be one overarching story. But to make up for this and stay within the budget, this company seemingly has honed in on individual character personalities, which adds some fun to the dialogue even though the end results seem to be mostly the same. This was a huge plus in the game for myself, and I was always excited to engage in dialogue, even if it was a little ugly to look at and I knew that my choices didn't really matter much. In terms of the overall story, it's probably lacking a bit when compared to Pathfinder and Baldur's Gate, and don't expect a deep backstory for the companions, but it's certainly not bad. I don't think people are going to be obsessing over the lore like they would with D&D, nor do I think the company even expects that. Combat has actually been very enjoyable overall, and the close adaptation to 5th edition mechanics I think is a huge plus here. It's challenging at times, it doesn't hold your hands, and after getting through a tough fight, I do actually feel that sense of accomplishment that I personally look for and thrive off of when playing games. There's a unique fast travel system in the game, random encounters, a ration system, a reputation system, and much more, all of which seems to be fairly well done. Before we move on, I want to quickly touch on the budget thing for a second, because this game obviously is working with much less of a budget than Pathfinder and of course Baldur's Gate 3. Some of my personal favorite games of all time were created with rather low budgets, while some of my most hated games to ever come into existence had insanely large budgets. Solasta is a small company and working with a smaller budget, yet they have created an ambitious project while staying within the limits of what they are capable of. They have focused on creating a game that works from the ground up, as opposed to working from the top down and starting with visuals. Some companies have a way of doing this thing where the lower quality visuals can actually add to the experience. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a bit nostalgic in a way, and you can almost feel the passion behind the game. Many other companies like to try the crazy visual marketing look that pulls people in, only for them to find out that the frame rates are horrible or the game just sucks in general. Not with Solasta. This is a homemade type feeling CRPG that's a bit more on the hardcore side in terms of mechanics and staying true to 5th edition. Definitely keep an eye on this gem and support it if you like it. This company is off to a great start. Now on to Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Wrath of the Righteous is the second game in the Pathfinder video game series. Many of you guys might have played or heard of Pathfinder Kingmaker, which came out in 2018. Wrath of the Righteous is an indirect sequel, so if you haven't played Kingmaker, no worries, you can still jump right in. It's kind of like Baldur's Gate 3 with Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. That might make some people mad. Oops. I hate to be the bearer of this news, but to participate in the beta, you have to be backing the game at the $114 price level, which does come with various other goodies. The game does not actually cost that much. You can currently pre-order the full game on the company's website for the very respectable price of $33. I'm not sure if this will be the final price, but I can promise you there's definitely way more than $33 worth of content and character creation alone. Wrath of the Righteous is being developed by a company called Owlcat Games, which has been around since 2016, and they raised over $2 million for the Kickstarter. That should tell you something right there. This game is of course a CRPG, but the catch is that it's real-time with pause and or turn-based. You can literally swap between the two combat styles while in combat. I think that this is really great, and the market is in need of a good CRPG that offers the classic real-time with pause style. I'm a huge turn-based fan, but I have been running real-time with pause for about 90% of my early access playthrough. It just feels right with this game. It's also great to be able to take a break from Baldur's Gate 3 and Solasta and switch over to a game in the same genre but with a totally different style, if you so choose. Another great thing about Pathfinder is that you'll be controlling a party of 6. So real-time with pause and a party with 6. I know some of you guys are jumping out of your shoes. The companions that I've come across have for the most part also been very interesting. All of them seemingly have a deep backstory, side quests, and most of them seem to intermingle with the main story, making it even more interesting. Pathfinder is not based on 5th edition D&D, but you will see some similarities. This game is actually based on the tabletop game called Pathfinder, which was originally some form or adaptation of D&D 3.5. Let me tell you right now that this game has depth, and with that comes some complexity. This can be a great thing for many CRPG lovers. In character creation, you can choose from 25 classes, most of which have 3 to 5 subclasses each. And then there's even more classes when you get into the prestigious classes. There's also an insane amount of feats, abilities, and spells to choose from for your characters. You got mythic paths that bring in their own set of abilities. It's actually pretty crazy. If you're into this type of versatility and in-depth character building, this will be a fun game for yourself. Now, the character creation in terms of visuals isn't much at this time. It'll probably get better when the game comes out. But once again, you have a game that is focusing from the ground up by adding true sustenance to their game and then bringing in visuals over the top. I do actually enjoy the overall aesthetics of the game. It almost has a bit of a cartoony World of Warcraft type vibe, which might not be for everyone, but it's not really over the top in my opinion. And when you see the particle effects from spells and various other things in the game, it actually starts to become fairly visually stunning. In terms of the story and dialogue, there is a lot of player agency, and I find myself wondering what would happen if I choose a different path. Alignment comes into play, your mythic path comes into play, and you can even become a lich. So I'm pretty happy with the story overall, the companions, and the player agency. Now there's not really much in terms of cinematics going on in this game. Most of the scenes seem to stay right in the typical camera view, but this is also okay because it's a different type of experience, and hey, we got Baldur's Gate 3 to satisfy our cinematic needs. I am told that there will be much more voice acting in the game when it actually comes out, and I don't want to comment too much on this, but I will say, even with that said, you should be prepared to do quite a lot of reading in this game. That's great for some and maybe not so great for others seeking a more laid-back experience. Pathfinder is not really laid back, and if you're new to this series or tabletop games in general, you've got to be prepared to be a student for a while. It can be a bit overwhelming, and I did feel this feeling myself, but it's not really a bad overwhelming feeling. I just really hope that the company makes sure that when they release the game, they offer the correct tutorials and ways to help out new players get into the game. Combat so far has shown to be easy, average, and extremely challenging all in one. I feel like you gotta experience it because this game certainly makes you use your brains in terms of understanding your opponents and their weaknesses. In the beta, you can play 4 chapters of the game, which is a lot of content, easily 50 plus hours of gameplay, especially for a beginner to this franchise, and the full game was last said to be coming out in June of this year. I do certainly have my share of things in the game that I'm not 100% enjoying just yet. Most of this seems to stem from the fast travel system. I'm not really used to it. I'm not sure if I'm really into it yet, but overall I think that this is going to be a great game that will offer a different experience than many of the other CRPGs we've seen in recent history. It's got my thumbs up. In the moment no one's been waiting for, because most of you guys already know what Baldur's Gate 3 is, and most of you guys know my thoughts on the game. Baldur's Gate 3 is also in early access, but it's likely a lot further away from launch than these other 2 titles. You can purchase early access on Steam, GOG, and Google Stadia for the full game's price of $60. Baldur's Gate 3 is an upcoming turn-based CRPG that takes place in the Forgotten Realms D&D setting. In terms of lore, this is a D&D nerd's wet dream, and yes, that includes me. This game is turn-based only, and like Solasta, you'll be controlling a party of 4. And early access so far has been rather an open world type of setting. This is the only game of the 3 that has multiplayer. There's currently 6 classes in early access, but likely 7 by the time some of you guys watch this video. Cleric, Fighter, Ranger, Rogue, Warlock, Wizard, and the Druid, which is supposed to come out this week. Larian Studios has basically confirmed that all 12 classes from the player's handbook will be in the game on its official launch. There's so much that's still going to be added to this game, it's pretty crazy. Now those of you who are 5th edition players will obviously spot the differences in the rules and mechanics between this game and 5e, and some people don't necessarily like this. I encourage those of you who feel this way to definitely check out Solasta, but keep an eye on Baldur's Gate 3 as well because there's still a lot to go in its development. In an overall sense, Baldur's Gate 3 is very similar to 5e, but there are some notable adaptations and homebrew type of rules that Larian has added or changed, such as gaining advantage and disadvantage. I really don't want to comment on this too much because, like I said, the game is still early in its early access, and we're going to see many more changes and probably even additions to the game in relation to 5e. I myself personally kind of stand in the middle on this subject. There's some things that I really want to be more strict in relation to 5e, while others that I think are better done in the style that Larian has chosen. But let's move on from that. That's like talking politics. The amount of work going into this game is almost hard to digest. We're not only getting a crazy visual cinematic experience, but this game is also going to come along with perhaps the most player agency you've ever seen in a game to date. That goes for story choices and combat alike. I've played over 300 hours so far, and in early access this is only Act 1, and I still discover new things and new ways to handle situations in every single playthrough. If you want your choices to matter and you want this presented to you in a movie-like experience, this is the game for you. Basically, every single NPC that you talk to literally is fully voice acted and comes with a cinematic experience. The story so far is a huge plus in my opinion for this game, and if you have any prior D&D world knowledge, you'll probably get sucked right into the plot. There's too many plot elements to even count on one hand, and although there are good theories out there, no one really has any true idea where the story is going to go. It's very much a page-turner type of book that can be read in many different ways. In terms of actual gameplay, the visuals are of course fantastic, the Underdark being my favorite, but the game also feels smooth, at least on my rig it does. Combat has been great, but I do think that some things need to be tweaked and balanced a little better. Keep in mind that this game, in terms of its overall development, seems to be in a much earlier stage than the other two, so I'm expecting to see many things improve over the course of early access. Even if you're not a huge fan of the combat at this point, it's hard to deny how crazy the player agency can be. There's so many different ways that you can handle a combat encounter, from using fire barrels, to one-shotting the hag with Lae'zel's Illithid powers, to sneaking onto high ground, to attempting the world record for most enemies thunderwaved, and so on. The companions that you run into that join your party, I personally have enjoyed them all. There are some complaints in the community here, but with the addition of more companions and our companion stories being able to develop beyond Act 1, I think this will all sort itself out. Dialogue in the game is incredibly well done, and this is another area where I think this game separates itself from most others. It can get really intense with the dice rolls, and then you got the visuals backing it up. This type of experience is not offered in Solasta or Pathfinder, and it makes sense because it takes millions and millions of dollars to pull this off. Baldur's Gate 3 is less hardcore in terms of rules and mechanics than Solasta and Pathfinder though, which makes it easier to understand, and that can be a good and bad thing depending on who you're talking to. In terms of difficulty, I think when early access is sorted out and multiple difficulty levels are offered, it should provide players with the type of experience they personally want to engage in. I honestly believe that this CRPG in particular is going to raise the bar for all CRPGs in the future. So there you have it, Solasta, Pathfinder, and Baldur's Gate 3. If you're like me, then you're excited for them all and life is pretty good. The great thing about these three is that they are all very different from each other and each offer their own unique experiences. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments, and thanks for watching.